Looks like we're live, I think. Just give me like 2 seconds, guys. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, awesome. We're live. Oh my gosh. Sorry for the late start. My Wi-Fi was being iffy. Like my Wi-Fi was being crazy. Like I could not get my computer to load up. So I'm glad I got it too. Um anyway, so for those of you who so okay, how words. So today I'm going to be reading the next 2 stories in Gumdrop Angel from Fazbear Frights number 8. The stories are, let me remember, Sergio's Lucky Day, and then What We Found. So I know for a fact that Sergio's Lucky Day is probably going to make me cry at the end, just like Gumdrop Angel did. I don't know about What We Found because I haven't actually read that one. And if I'm still feeling up to it after reading those, I do have 2 more books from the Fazbear Frights that I could start. Let me just grab those real quick. Okay, so the other 2 I have are Puppet Carver and Prankster. So I have number 9 and number 11 as well. So I have those if I'm still feeling up to reading. Though I'll probably just save them for a later stream because if I'm lucky and I'm really feeling up to it, I might be able to get 2 streams in one today. So, that'll be fun. Anyway, so let's get into it after I do one real quick little thing. Just need to do something real quick. See if this messes with my computer at all, because I need to load up the video on this computer so that I can put it into the Discord server. One sec. So there we go. Anyway, is that shouldn't be long enough that you guys can hear it. Anyway, let's get into it. So first up, Gumdrop Angel's second story, Sergio's Lucky Day. I'm a little weary of streaming while reading again because I do know that there were some lag issues at some points when I was reading Gumdrop Angel, which I'm a little scared about again, but we'll see what happens. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Hopefully my voice doesn't give out again. I do have water nearby for if I get dehydrated. I will be taking breaks like last time and checking in with you guys to see what you guys think. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, that's kind of like me. I'm sorry. Okay. Sergio looked up from his drafting board and squinted in annoyance at the bright sunshine blasting through the wall-to-wall windows along the front of the office building. He shifted to avoid being blinded, and he rubbed it at the afternoon kink in his neck. He checked the time on his new stainless steel aviator-style watch, 2:32 p.m. He peered at the subdials within the main dial of the watch. He had 3 subdials, and he had no use for any of them, but they looked impressive. And things that looked impressive made him feel impressive. Above all, that was what Sergio wanted to be. Impressive. I keep telling you, Serge, you have to be careful what you wish for. Sergio jerked toward the man who'd come up behind him, and he knocked over his coffee mug in the process. It went flying. But the man, Dale, Sergio's supervisor, caught it. Dale was a senior manager in their architectural firm, and a big guy, an ex-football player to boot. The mug looked puny in his massive hand. Now you've gone and done it, Dale said, flicking a few drops of coffee from his wrist. Thankfully, there wasn't much left in the mug. The sun hit the top of Dale's shaved head, and it shined so bright that it looked like a halo. Sorry, Dale. Didn't mean to throw a mug at you. What? Dale looked down at the mug, then thrust it back at Sergio. Forget the mug. You got it, Serge. You got the project manager job. Sergio stood, then grinned. Really? I thought this decision wasn't going to be made until next week. It got pushed up because Sanders is leaving sooner than we thought he was. Sergio slid his shiny black wingtips over the gray carpet in an abbreviated moonwalk back toward the sunshine behind him. Then he twirled and did a fist pump. Darky. Dale chuckled. Congratulations. He held out his hand. Sergio shook his hand, but then frowned. What did you mean by what you said? What did I say? Well, you said two things. Be careful what you wish for, and now you've gone and done it. Well, you do realize how hard project managers work, all right? Are you ready to start living at the office? Sergio laughed. Dale didn't. Sergio sobered. Are you serious? Dale grinned and punched Sergio's arm. Only a little. You'll probably only have to sleep here 3 or 4 nights a month. Sergio nodded as if that was just fine. But he really wasn't. The truth was that when he applied for the project manager job, he hadn't really been thinking about what the job would be like. He applied because it was the next logical step up from where he was. He was on a fast track to the top, and staying on that track meant applying for promotions, whether he wanted to do more work or not. Sorry, one sec. At 27, he defied the laws of becoming an architect to get where he already was. He got through college and postgrad work needed by the time he was 21. He was hired by the best architectural firm in town and had his license by the time he was 22. It only took him 3 years to get to senior architect, much to the annoyance of several older architects who got passed over. And now he was the firm's youngest ever project manager. Why was he able to do all this? Well, one, because he was an architectural phenom. Ever since he was a kid, he had a head for numbers and an eye for spatial relationships. He knew how to mold physical reality into something eye-catching. And two, he was determined. He was so determined to reach the top, they willed himself to work as hard as he had to. Nothing would stop him from getting what he wanted. But lately, he'd begun to wonder whether what he wanted was really what he wanted. Earth's a surge, Dale said. Sorry, lost you there. Sergio shook his head. Sorry. Don't worry, Dale said. We won't make you sleep here tonight. Dale let loose with one of his full laughs, which was just one step below a sonic boom. And another text. Okay, Sergio noticed that not a single head on the design floor lifted at the sound. Everyone was used to it. Dale tapped Sergio's drafting desk. I'll let you get back to it, but after work, we should go out for dinner to celebrate your promotion. Say 7:30? Oh, and you'll need to pack up your stuff. I'll have janitorial bring you boxes. They'll be moving your things into your office tomorrow. Why am I so tired? Sergio smiled. That was another reason he'd applied for the project manager job. He was going to get his own office, an enclosed space. No more working out here or in the open with the other junior and senior architects. Now that was impressive. As soon as Dale strode away, Sergio's closest work buddy, both in terms of desk location and time spent together, Clive, threw a wadded up piece of paper at him. Congrats, you idiot. Sergio deflected the ball of paper and said, You're just jealous. Not even a little, idiot. Clive shook his round head, and his bushy brown hair flew into his eyes. For at least the 1,000th time, Sergio marveled at how much his friend looked like Bubbles, the chocolate labradoodle Clive and his girlfriend, Fiona, another architect in the firm, doted on. It wasn't just Clive's brown curly hair. It was his big brown eyes, the earthy tones he dressed in, and the fluid way he moved, always ready for some kind of fun. Once Sergio told Clive they looked like Bubbles, and Clive responded with, well, you look like Trotter. Sergio had to laugh at that. Trotter was Dale's dog, a spoiled miniature pinscher, and Sergio actually could see the resemblance. Like Trotter, he was small and compact and slender, and he had a somewhat pointed nose. Also like Trotter, though, he was muscular and sleek. He wore his black hair slicked back, and he always dressed in dark, fitted clothing. He knew he wasn't good looking, but he did his best to have his own impressive, of course, style. And his girlfriend, Violet, a junior architect at the firm, didn't seem to mind how he looked. You realize I'm your boss now, Sergio reminded Clive. Clive snorted. Fine, Mr. Idiot. Sergio grinned, shook his head, and tried to concentrate on his work. Most of the department came to Sergio's promotion dinner. Considering it was short notice for everyone, Sergio thought that was impressive. He hoped it was because he was well liked and not because they were sucking up. But he couldn't tell. He never could tell with people. He couldn't read people, not even Violet, whom he'd been dating for almost a year. Okay. He was often unsure about what she was really thinking. Did she mean it when she said he was awesome, or was she dating him because he was moving up in the firm and she thought he'd take her with him? That was why he had to rely on hard work to get him the life he wanted. He was never going to schmooze his way to the top. He could no more schmooze than he could slam dunk a basketball. The dinner wasn't fancy. They all just traipsed across the street to the steakhouse that had been a fixture on the block well before the firm moved into their new office building the year before. But that was okay. The steakhouse had great food, and it had the kind of old-world atmosphere Sergio liked. Wood-paneled walls, leather chairs, dark stained tables, plush gold carpeting, and ornate wall sconces. Dale had reserved this restaurant's meeting room, and now Sergio sat at a round table filled with his fellow architects. 12 of the 14 in his department were here. Everyone was having a great time, joking, laughing, and flirting. Strike that. Everyone but Sergio was having a great time. Yes, he was throwing out one-liners and laughing at the right times, but his heart wasn't in it. Ever since he'd gotten the news of his promotion, he'd been battling a sudden onset of depression he couldn't explain. What was wrong with him? He'd gotten good news, but it didn't feel good at all. So what's it like to be the new project manager? Violet asked as Sergio cut into his medium rare ribeye. The grilled aroma of the beef on his plate combined with the savory sense of butter and onions. His mouth watered as he watched the pink juices run from the steak. He speared the bite he'd just cut apart. Sergio looked at his freckled brunette girlfriend, short and pillowy. Violet was the picture of curvy femininity. To play up her soft features, Violet wore clothes with lots of trim and ruffles and color. Her wardrobe had sass, as she called it. She was always asking him if she looked sassy. He wasn't sure how sassy looked, so he always lied. "You look sassy as heck, babe." He basically lied. Looking at Violet now, Sergio realized he often lied when it came to Violet. "Don't you love romantic comedies?" Violet had asked just the other night as they head to the theater for yet another romantic comedy movie. "Sure do, babe," Sergio said. He hated romantic comedies. Give him a good sci-fi or supernatural movie any day. Even horror was better than a romantic comedy. "I hate horror movies," Violet had said on their second date. "Don't you?" "Absolutely," Sergio said. "The same thing kind of happened with Chinese food. Everyone seems to love Chinese food," Violet said on their third date, "but I don't get the appeal. It's either too bland or too spicy. What do you think?" "I totally agree," Sergio said. Chinese takeout was one of his favorite things. Violet chose how they spent their time, too. On their first date, Violet announced that she was a go-getter. She let Sergio know that quiet nights at home would be rare. My mama always said, you stand too still too long, Vi, and you'll sprout roots. You gotta keep rolling so you don't gather moss. So I like to keep moving and keep doing. When I'm not at work, I'm out having fun, you know?" Sergio nodded, even though he was still entangling her mixed metaphors. And he really liked hanging out at home. "Sure," he said. "Life's too short to grow moss on your roots." This is toxic. Not toxic. This is bad. Like, if you don't like the person you're with and you don't actually have common ground, then why? Why put yourself through this pain? Like, why? I don't. Okay. Brain to brain aside. Violet thought that was hilariously funny, which was nice because he liked when people found his attempts at humor amusing. But it was equally not nice because Violet had a truly obnoxious laugh. A cross between a honk, a siren, and a snore. Violet's laugh attracted attention the way syrup attracted flies. She'd embarrassed Sergio on dozens of occasions. He actually started trying not to be amusing. It didn't work. Apparently, he was the master of inadvertently saying funny things. Just just this evening, after Jail told him about the promotion, Sergio went to Violet's drafting table and told her the good news. There'll be a dinner tonight. I assume you'll want to come. She laughed as if he'd just told the best joke ever. He found that baffling. Yes, Violet was smart, and yes, they had shared interest, and yes, she was pretty fun. But was it really so much to want a girlfriend who liked more of the things he liked? He wondered if they'd still be dating if he told her the truth from the beginning. Probably not. Well, maybe. Like, okay, it's okay to have differences in like movie opinions and food opinions, but if you lie about everything and then you try to fix it later, that's never going to work. Like, that is seriously never going to work. Just be open, be honest from the beginning. If you're going to try to lie to get your way through a relationship, don't be in a relationship. It's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for the other person when they find out the truth. And, like, you can't be, like, a perfect match for someone. Like, you can't have, like, for example, like, everything 100% match. Like, that's not going to happen unless you find, like, your perfect twin. But even that is going to be very, very near impossible. So just try to be open, be honest. Don't try to push yourself to lie to people just because you're like, I really want to impress this person, so I'm just going to say that I like everything they like. That don't do that. That is not healthy. Not for you, not for them. Like, be a little like, well, I don't really like that, but we can do it if you want to this one time. Or like, try things they like, have them try things you like. Don't just stick to what your partner likes to do. And don't be a pushover either. Don't be like, I don't want to do that. And then they're like, oh, well, guess what? You're going to have to now. And you're like, okay, fine. Don't be a pushover. If you don't want to do something, stand up. Don't. And if they break up with you for it, then that's their prerogative because they don't like you. Like, if they care about you, they're not going to break up with you. So, pausing that rant again, back to the story. Sorry, this is a little triggering to me sometimes. I will admit I have read this story. I know how it ends. But this is not good. Don't do this. Don't take a page from Sergio's book here. Moving on. Would she even like him if she knew him, like, really knew him? Heck, sometimes he wasn't sure if she liked the version of him he was pretending to be. Probably not. And sometimes he didn't like her much either. Violet was a flirt. Even though she was with Sergio, she liked to come on to other men. And not just some men. All men. Married or unmarried. She didn't care. She just liked to flirt. Bitch, no. No. This is just... I'm sorry. I know I keep stopping, but this is not good. She's a flirt. He's lying. Okay, it's okay to flirt if you want, but, like, seriously, like, I don't know. It's just, I don't think it's a good idea, especially since, like, you're basically lying. Like, I don't know. I just don't like it. Sergio had never liked the flirting, but lately it was really getting on his nerves. Sergio blinked and looked at Violet. She was tugging on his sleeve. I asked you a question. I'm sorry, what did you ask? I asked how it feels to be the new project manager. Waiting until he put his first bite of steak in his mouth and chewed it, Sergio gave Violet what he hoped was a neutral look that didn't betray his annoyance at her. For once, he gave her an honest answer. Well, I'm not the project manager yet, am I? So I don't know. Violet let loose with her laugh. Sergio looked down and quickly took another bite of steak. The biggest issue in his relationship was that, well, Violet wasn't the girl he really wanted, but that girl was someone he hadn't seen in years. He wondered what she was doing now. It's okay to want another person, but if you don't like the person you're with, don't do it. You're just gonna hurt them. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Call me the nurse. Just stop the rage. Okay. Sophia Manchester started going to Sergio's high school during his junior year. He fell in love with her on the first day she came to class. Small and graceful like a ballerina, Sophia had the dark looks he loved, and she had the face of an angel. She was very smart, very funny, very nice, and unfortunately, very popular. Although she was always perfectly kind to him, he'd noticed she seemed to like a lot of the same things he did. They moved in entirely different circles. He didn't stand a chance. But he never forgot her. In the nearly 10 years since he'd seen her, he'd been trying to find a woman like her. Violet, sadly, wasn't that woman. Then why are you with her? Violet patted his leg, then turned away from him to flirt with Clive. Even though only an airhead would flirt with Clive, everyone knew Clive was obviously taken by outspoken red-haired Fiona, who sat on the other side now, and Fiona was not a woman to be messed with. Case in point, when Violet leaned toward Clive to rub her chest against his arm. Bitch. Violet should be working in, what is it? Violet should be working in like a strip club or something, not in an architectural firm or something like this. Like, she should be in like a strip club, or like, she just seems to be like a prostitute. She likes wearing clothes that are sassy. She likes flirting, and she's rubbing her body against another guy right next to her boyfriend. What the hell? I'm sorry, but what? Okay. Case in point, when Violet leaned toward Clive to rub her chest against his arm, a spoonful of Fiona's mashed potatoes flew across the table and onto Violet's new blouse. She deserves it. Oh, sorry, Fiona purred in her smooth, confident voice. I don't know how that got away from me. Violet sniffed loudly and extricated the potatoes from her blouse. She leaned away from Clive. Sergio suppressed a smile and concentrated on the steak. The steak was the best part of this evening's celebration. He could have done without the forced camaraderie. Yet being friendly with other people was hard work, and he was tired tonight. He wanted to go home and stop trying for just a few hours. But he couldn't do that yet. He had to keep eating and bantering and pretending all was right in the world. After most of the plates on the table had been cleared away by the waiters, Dale stood and tapped his water glass. The ding 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 brought up every head at the table. So, Serge, Dale said, we want a speech. You know we do. I keep changing the voices. I'm sorry, I keep changing the voices on you guys. I'm sorry. Everyone except Clive started chanting, speech, speech, speech. Clive was mouthing idiot at Sergio. Sergio smiled instead. I'll make this short and sweet. Everyone cheered. Dale laughed. See, there's a reason this kid has advanced so quickly. Sergio grinned, as he knew he was supposed to. Well, here we go. Thank you, Dale, to you and the partners for the promotion. Dale inclined his head, smiling. You deserve it. Sergio smiled. And to the rest of you. He lowered his voice to a growl. You're mine now, maggots. And don't you forget it. The table was silent for at least 3 seconds. Then Clive burst out laughing and started clapping. Violet joined in, and then everyone was laughing. Phew! For a second, Sergio thought he'd blown it. Honestly, that is pretty funny. He's just like, you're mine now, maggots. I know my voice doesn't really growl like that, but it's still pretty good. Like, I would honestly laugh at that because, like, I don't know. I just think it's kind of funny that he thinks he's just so on top of the world. I don't know. I'm a dork. Anyway, Of course, Violet wanted to go out dancing after the dinner, and she convinced Sergio to invite Clive and Fiona and a couple other architects. Even though Sergio enjoyed showing off his dance moves, they stayed up ridiculously late. Finally, Sergio took Violet home and then headed to his own apartment building a few blocks away. Pulling his 2-year-old SUV into his assigned space in the garage under his apartment building, Sergio picked up his suit jacket from the leather passenger seat. He stepped out of the black vehicle, then closed and locked the doors. For a few seconds, he stood and stared at his SUV. He remembered how excited he was when he bought it. He'd been wanting to trade in his old pickup for a nice SUV for years. Once he'd done it, though, he realized he didn't have the vehicle he truly desired. Why was it that whenever he climbed a little higher on the ladder, he felt like he still had too many rungs to go before he reached the top? Sighing, Sergio left his SUV behind him and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. There he strode to his apartment, hurrying quietly with his back to his neighbor's door. Mrs. Bailey was a busybody, and she liked to ambush him when he got home. Only once in a while did he manage to get past. "Oh, it's just you, Sergio," Mrs. Bailey's scratchy voice said as Sergio put his key in his lock. "I thought I heard an intruder. You're quite late tonight. Hot date?" Sergio took a breath and then turned. "Hi, Mrs. Bailey." The petite, gray-haired lady beamed at him. In the daytime, she usually wore crisply ironed shirt dresses in pastel colors, but tonight she was sporting a frilly pink nightgown under a white quilted robe. "How was work today?" "Fine." Sergio wasn't going to tell her about the promotion. Oh, no. She would have insisted on inviting him in for some kind of baked good in spite of the time. He yawned. Not a fake yawn, but a well-timed one. "I'm awfully tired, Mrs. Bailey. Please forgive me, but I need to get inside and go to bed." "Of course you do, dear." Mrs. Bailey smiled at him. "You go get your rest." Sergio thanked his lucky stars and slipped into his apartment before Mrs. Bailey could say anything else. He closed the door behind him and latched all 4 latches. He leaned back against his door and closed his eyes. Home at last. Sergio had a nice apartment. At 1,200 square feet, it was far from tiny, and the complex had been built only 2 years before. It sported the most up-to-date appliances and modern features that his architectural eye appreciated. A couple friends from the firm had helped Sergio decorate his apartment, and it looked good. They'd used neutral beiges and grays that felt both upscale and masculine, and most of the furnishings were expensive antiques. It was a decent place, but he resented that it was in a building that also had housed the likes of Mrs. Bailey. He deserved peace, didn't he? He shouldn't have to put up with a nosy old lady who didn't have anything better to do than torment him. Sergio crossed the living room and went into his bedroom. Removing his wallet from his pocket, he placed it in the ceramic tray he used for his wallet and keys and whatever other detritus might come out of his pockets at the end of the day. He then undressed and carefully hung up his suit and put everything else in the laundry hamper. Tugging on gray sweats and a black t-shirt, he lay down on the bed and dropped immediately into sleep. Okay. We're going to do a quick pause. I need to grab a bookmark. A sec. Okay. Can't believe I forgot to grab a bookmark. How dare I? So I'm just going to take a break and chat for a sec to rest my voice up just a little. I really need to just okay, so I know I probably shouldn't read the stories beforehand so you guys get my full reaction, but I like reading the stories beforehand so I have a general idea of what kind of voices I should do. But for when I record, Puppet Carver and Prankster are the other 2 I have, like I showed at the beginning of the stream. I won't be pre-reading those stories just so I don't spoil myself on those stories so you guys get my full reaction. I'll have to figure out the voices on the fly, but that's how it goes sometimes. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Let's get back into it then. Okay. The next morning, his alarm woke him up at 6 a.m. Feeling groggy and foggy, he groaned and turned on the TV. Flipping through the channels, he thought about the long day he had ahead. He should get moving. He looked at the phone on his Queen Anne cherry nightstand. He checked his watch. It wasn't too early. He picked up the phone. Leaning on a pile of gray, white, and beige pillows, Sergio listened to the phone ring. It was picked up on the third one. Hello? Okay, wait, sorry. Hello? His mother's lightly accented voice said. Mama, Sergio said. Sergio, what a nice surprise. Sure, I guess they're gonna be British. I don't know. One sec. Something rustled against the phone, and her voice was muffled as she called out, Tony, come here. It's Sergio on the phone. What is this accent? Oh my god. Okay. Her voice returned to full volume, and beyond when she shouted into the phone, Sergio, you still there? I'm putting you on speaker. Your papa is doing his morning workout. Tony, come here. Talk to Sergio on the speaker. Sergio shook his head. His mother sure did love her speakerphone. How's our Sergio? A deep voice boomed into the phone. Have you built any skyscrapers lately? The big machine gun laugh that came after his ridiculous question was joined by his mother's wild giggling. Okay. Sergio shook his head again. You know I don't build skyscrapers, Papa. I'm in the residential renovation department of the firm. So renovate skyscraper apartment buildings. In a town where the tallest building is 10 stories high, you have to be a visionary, son. If you want it all. You can't reach the top without being able to see the top. You have to be bold and daring to stand out. Tony Altieri knew all about being bold and daring and being on the top. In the head of a massive transportation company, Sergio's dad was one impressive man. By the time Sergio was born, when Tony was 30, Tony had already built his empire and a mansion for his wife and new baby. Since then, his business only continued to grow. Today, he not only filled his mansion with the best furniture and art and cars, but he also bought more houses to fill with furniture, art, and cars. I got a promotion today, Sergio said. The one I told you I applied for. I got it. Head of the company? Tony asked, laughing again. Tony, be nice, Sergio's mother said. Congratulations, Sergio. We're so proud of you. We need to have a celebration. Your favorite pasta and cake. We have to have a cake. What was the job you applied for again? Project manager. That sounds nice, his mother said. Tony snorted. Don't rest on your laurels, Sergio. Always upward. Did you catch the game last night? Sergio noticed he was gritting his teeth, and he forced himself to relax. I saw the score. I missed the game because we all went out to dinner to celebrate my promotion. Did you meet anyone? Sergio's mother asked. No, Mama. It was just the people in my department. Viola's the only woman there who's interested in me. They got no taste, Tony said. At least Violet knows a good thing when she sees it. Sergio's mother snorted. She wasn't Violet's biggest fan. Sergio made his excuses to get off the phone as fast as he could. He was asking himself why he called his parents to begin with. Well, he knew why he called them. He called them to get validation. He was trying to feel like he'd finally gotten enough to have arrived. Why in the world did he think he'd get that validation from his father? Okay, one sec. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Okay, back into it. All the rich food he ate the night before must have slowed down his brain function. Sergio's new office was outstanding. His new job was not. The office wasn't huge. It wasn't a corner office or anything. Honestly, it was just a small plain room tucked between the break room and a conference room. But it was his. Plus, his windows had shades, which for some reason were missing from the windows out on the design floor. Sergio happily pulled those shades down when the sun came around to spear his eyes at 2 p.m. The shade pulling moment was, however, the only happy moment of the day. The rest of the day was just a mind-numbing blur as he tried to speed up what tried to get up to speed with what Sanders had been doing, rather had not been doing. After just 2 hours of assessing the situation, he understood why Sanders had left earlier than expected. This was not a job for one person, it was a job for at least 10 people, plus assistants. Clive was right. Sergio had been an idiot. He hadn't been told what his pay raise would be before he applied for the promotion, but he figured it would be a decent increase. He was wrong. He was only going to get another $1,000 a month to do 10 times more work. Idiot, he muttered to himself as he tried to organize the few tasks he thought he might be able to get done today. If he stayed until nearly midnight. Sergio's door opened and Clive's head popped in, along with the aromas wafting over from the break room. Sergio could smell coffee, popcorn, and someone's microwave burritos. How's the new job? Clive asked. Sergio dropped his head to the pile of paperwork in front of him and pounded it a couple times. That good, huh? Clive came the rest of the way into the room and sat in one of the narrow leather and stainless steel chairs in front of Sergio. He looked around at Sergio's plain oak desk and the other chair and the shelves piled with project files and the drafting table tucked in the corner. So you do have a drafting table, Clive noted. Think you'll get used to it? Sergio didn't answer the question. Instead he asked, do you ever think we reach our ideals? Clive turned sideways and put his feet up on the other chair in front of the desk. That's a deep question. Sorry, I know you hate using your dozen or so brain cells to think about deep questions. Yeah, you're stressing me out here. Never mind. No, it's a good question. Honest answer, I don't think ideals are actually real. I think they exist only in our heads. I mean, have you ever drawn something that was as good as you imagined it in your head? If you have, I'll buy you a dinner every night for a week because I sure as hell haven't. As tempting as it is to lie to get those dinners, Sergio said, grinning. No, I haven't. There you go. We're all a bunch of donkeys. What? You know, the carrot and the stick? We're just a bunch of donkeys plodding along trying to reach a carrot that will forever dangle out in front of us, no matter how far we plod. That's depressing. Clive shrugged and shook his head, doing an unintentional impression of Bubbles the Labradoodle. Then my work is done. He grinned. Seriously, I don't think it's depressing at all. It's kind of freeing when you think about it. If we can't ever get what we want, why bother trying? Just do your best and have a good time. Mr. Idiot, sir. He paused. He paused and saluted. Mr. Idiot, sir. He bowed multiple times as he backed out of Sergio's office. Sergio laughed, then sobered and tried to concentrate on work. 2.5 weeks into the new position, Sergio had doubled his caffeine consumption, and he was still constantly 10 paces behind. He'd already made two dumb mistakes that cost the firm several $1,000s, and he'd already been berated twice by a client. Dale assured him that this was normal, that this was a normal part of the learning curve for the project manager's job, but Sergio was still mortified. He was also bored and disappointed. He thought that becoming the project manager would give him more leeway to implement cutting-edge design ideas, more freedom to break past the boundaries of the usual renovations his department did. For some time, he was frustrated by the safe, limited changes their clients made to their homes. He wanted to be giving carte blanche to bust into a place, demo the heck out of it, and turn into something else entirely. He thought a project manager would hold enough sway they could make that vision a reality. He was wrong. The projects he had to oversee were the same old things, and now, in addition to disliking the types of jobs he was working on, he had the responsibility for more aspects of those jobs. This new position really was just more work and no more satisfaction. Not only was work in full suck mode, but his home life, such as it was, had gone down the toilet as well. Sorry, another text. Okay. Mrs. Bailey had taken to staying up late so she could greet him with her latest suggestions for getting more sleep. Then there was the tenant who lived above him. The woman who had the apartment on the next floor up took dancing lessons. He'd been listening to her stomping around above his head for weeks. He didn't know her name, but he'd given her the title of Thunderfeet. Now, for some reason, Thunderfeet was practicing until 2 a.m. He tried to talk to her about it one night, but after scolding him for ringing her doorbell too late, she called him names that made him blush. Ooh. Okay, Thunderfeet. Also, because he never had time to go to the grocery store, he was eating more takeout. And because he was so tired when he got home, he rarely exercised and instead dropped into bed. These two changes had resulted in a disturbing potbelly that was growing with each passing day. Whoop. That's not good. Sergio's dissatisfaction was growing with each passing day. He too. There were a number of hours he was working. So were the number of hours he was working. It was near midnight most nights when he left the firm, and he always came home with a stack of work to look over before bed. As if this wasn't all bad enough, Violet hated Sergio's new long hours even more than he did, and it was turning her into a nag. "How come you have to work all the time, Sergio?" she asked him on Saturday night at the end of his first week as project manager. There was a party she insisted they attend, even though they couldn't get there until after 10:30 p.m. because he worked until then. He knew she was going to want to stay until at least 2 or later. Then he was going to have to get up and go to work early Sunday morning. If he didn't, there was no way he could handle Monday. Because it's part of the new job, Sergio said with a thick layer of sarcasm. "The new job I just got promoted into, it's a high workload. What do you suggest I do? Get us on, cut the workload in half?" He never should have said that. Violet laughed hysterically, and everyone at the party turned to stare at them. And so it went. Work, try and please his girlfriend, get home late, deal with Miss Bailey, eat junk, listen to Thunderfeet, finally go to sleep, rinse and repeat. Ugh. This kind of reminds me of being at school. So at school lately, I've been having a lot of work. I'm a little behind in my schoolwork, and it just feels like a constant like workload that I can't catch up on, that I literally do not have the ability to fix. Like, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that it just feels that way. I get how this guy feels. I get what Sergio is feeling here, and it really does suck because, like, especially if you're in like a relationship, like it can feel like you're just trapped and you can't do anything about the situation, especially you have to work, appease your significant other, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever pronouns. If you and then appease your friends, do more work, go to school or work, it's just an endless cycle and it's exhausting. It's really just not that fun. But if you have work or school, then it's a cycle you have to live with so that you can eventually get out of the cycle and like eventually just just burst out, just get to a point where you're happy in what you're doing, like having a job that you love doing, and then just start having fun. But it takes a long time to get there. And to Sergio is not happy in his work, which means that his work is just work to him. Like, sure, he has an eye for architectural like space and all that stuff, and he has a head for numbers, but that doesn't mean that he should be putting himself through this crap, because like if he was how do I word this? If you like what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. Like, and he doesn't like what he's doing, so it just feels like work to him. So yeah, there's oh, my throat. Okay. His days were basically drudgery. The only few minutes in them that he really liked were those moments when he walked out of the building, admired his dedicated project manager's parking spot. Now, there was a park worth working your tail off for. Not. Strolled to it and got in his car. That was his fleeting moment of freedom. Every night, he just got a few seconds of joy in the feeling of escape. But even that was beyond his reach on this rainy Tuesday night. Here we go. Because the forecast had been the usual for sunshine, Sergio wasn't prepared for rain. Even though his new parking spot was only 20 feet away from the firm's door, he and his stack of papers were soaked when he got into the SUV. And he was cold and hungry. Sergio put his papers on the passenger seat. He turned on the heat full blast, which caused the vehicle to steam up, and his wool suit started smelling like a wet farm animal. Ugh. Or was that his own smell? He didn't know. Personal hygiene was another thing this job was taking from. Oh, God. Why is Violet still with him? That's gross. I'm sorry. Pulling out of the parking lot, Sergio couldn't help but notice that he had the road mostly to himself. It had been like that every night this week, which was why it was not just annoying, but screamingly inconvenient when his 2-year-old SUV decided to die in the totally closed down and deserted retail district of downtown. Sergio was barely able to coast to the curb before the SUV lost all momentum and drifted into a full, silent stop. Sergio looked at the still bright dashboard lights. Not the battery. He looked at the gas tank. It was half full, not out of gas. Are you kidding me? He asked his vehicle. It had no response. He tried to restart the SUV. Nothing. There was no point in him looking under the hood. He knew nothing about vehicle engines. So, Sergio sat in the dead SUV and listened to rain thrumming on the roof. He tried to see through the gray murk of the falling water. Everything outside the SUV was vague and obscure. But from what he could tell, no one was around. Is this during a time when cell phones aren't a thing? Okay. If this were me, if I was in his position, I'd pull up my cell phone and call a towing company or call for help. Why doesn't he just call someone? Is this really a time before a portable cell phone? That's something that I feel like needs to be explained because it's an SUV, but I don't know. I don't know much about car history, I'll be honest. So I don't know if it being an SUV matters, but I feel like SUVs are more like in the 2000s, which means that he should have a portable cell phone. And assuming that phone isn't dead, he should be able to call someone for help. I'm sorry, but that's just the logic in my head. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? So Sergio saw it in the dead. There we go. Okay. He peered into the gloom looking for an open sign on one of the storefronts. He didn't see any. This block had no bars or restaurants, so nothing was open. Okay. He thought about where he was, and he remembered there was a gas station 2 blocks over. Hopefully he could get a tow truck there. But that meant walking in the rain for 10 minutes. Oh, joy. Sergio leaned his head on the steering wheel. What a perfectly awful end to a perfectly awful week. Sounds like hell. Like he's in purgatory or something. I don't know. Sergio raised his head and looked at the still wet stack of papers on the passenger seat. He had the urge to pick them up and throw them out in the rain. He could see himself doing it in his mind's eye, and he could see himself dancing on top of them. Blowing out air, Sergio motioned as dead car and said, "Camel's back, meet your last straw." Oh, okay, I think I get the reference. What breaks the camel's back, it's that one straw that one little bit of extra pressure that'll just break a camel's back, I think is what it's referencing here. I might be wrong. Just got a message. Okay. How long is this story? I'm just curious. So the story is from page 66 to page 140. I don't know. That should be about 80 pages, I think. About 74 pages, I think. I might be wrong. I think I just lost my spot. Shit. Oh, never mind. I found it. I'm on page 88, so we're about 22 pages in. The rain started coming down harder. Sergio leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. How had he gotten here? After all his hard work, after all his striving, all his determination, after all that, comes this? A broken down SUV in the middle of the night in the pouring rain. Fine. Sergio opened the door and stepped out into the weather. He was soaked immediately. He slammed the SUV's driver's door, stomped forward 2 feet, and kicked the front tire as hard as he could. Ouch! Sergio screamed. He hopped around on one foot and marveled at how much pain a toe could generate. Water slid down inside his collar, and his hopping foot splashed water up his pants leg. Ugh. Resisting the urge to kick his vehicle again, Sergio stomped away from it. Then he pulled his ruined shirt jacket up over his head as a makeshift hood. He sloshed over to the sidewalk. There, he put his head down and trudged away. The streetlights provided enough illumination for him to see the sidewalk cracks in the curb. This was all he needed for navigation. He'd gone just a block when the rain started to let up. Not really caring at that point, because he was already wet through and through, Sergio kept walking. But then 2 things happened at once. The rain stopped entirely, and Sergio nearly tripped over an overstuffed green garbage bag lying in the middle of the sidewalk. Need to pause for a sec. Sorry if I keep pausing. Sergio lowered his suit coat and he looked around. The nearest streetlight poured pale yellow light on a dumpster that had tipped partway over. Its contents were spilled all over the sidewalk. Okay. Partially eaten food, sodden papers, and collapsed latte cups were strewn all around. Sergio began taking careful steps through the trash. He'd gone a couple of feet when the streetlight's glow hit something brightly colored. Sergio assumed it was a plastic bowl or cup, but even so, he glanced at it as he passed. He stopped. It wasn't a plastic bowl or cup. It was... What was it? Oh my god. Curious about the unique shape standing out among the ordinary refuse, Sergio took a step closer to it. It was a bright red propeller on top of a cap. Leaning over, Sergio discovered that the propeller cap was attached to the round head of a small, maybe 10-inch high plastic figurine. The figurine was that of a small boy with reddish-brown hair, big blue eyes, and an orange triangular nose, rosy cheeks, and a wide mouth full of pronounced white teeth. The figurine's round head was matched in shape and size with the trunk of its body, which resembled a colorful bowling ball with arms and legs. The figurine was wearing a short-sleeved 2-button shirt that had vertical red and blue stripes, matching the pattern on the cap. The shirt was tucked into solid blue pants, and the pants cuffs ended at the top with a pair of plain brown shoes. The shoes were more rounded than foot-shaped, but they matched the boy's fingerless, stumpy hands. Both hands were occupied. The figurine's right hand held a very large red and yellow striped balloon, and the figurine's right hand held a small sign that read, "I'm a lucky boy." You are you? Sergio playfully asked the figurine. Do you have any tips? I could use some luck. I'm a lucky boy, the figurine said in a high-pitched child's voice. Sergio widened his eyes and stared. This wasn't just a figurine. It was an electronic toy. Surprised the toy was still working despite sitting in the rain, he was intrigued enough to pick it up. Wet, cold, hard, and slippery, the toy was light in weight, and though it looked old-fashioned, it was in great condition. No paint was scarred or faded. Sergio turned the toy this way and that, looking for a control switch. You can see one. He checked for a speaker and saw none. He even scanned for a battery compartment, but found nada. Interesting. So was I'm a lucky boy, all the toy said? Just for fun. Sergio decided to talk to the toy. You say you're a lucky boy. You like your sign says. Good for you. Good for you, the toy said. Oh, okay. The toy was probably had some stock phrases to play, and it was programmed to repeat back what it heard. That is, recorded. Its inner workings were surprisingly well hidden. It didn't seem like a cheap toy. Sergio decided to test his theory about the recording. He said, testing, testing. Testing, testing. The little toy didn't repeat the words. Instead, it said, it's lucky to be lucky. Then it emitted a funny little giggle. Sergio smiled. The giggle was infectious. Sergio looked around. He was still alone. He looked back at the toy and shrugged. Do you have a name? Sergio asked the toy. My name is Lucky Boy. The toy said. Sergio snorted. I never would have guessed. Sergio wondered if Lucky Boy was worth anything. Probably not. But either way, he found he couldn't leave it lying there. It was unique, and it looked antique. He loved unique antiques. He didn't make them part of his home decor. Sorry. Back. Sorry, I keep getting distracted, guys. I have a friend who's texting me, so yeah. Tucking the toy under his arm, Sergio walked on, and within 5 minutes he was in the gas station convenience store making arrangements to have his car towed. While he signed paperwork, he set Lucky Boy on the counter. The teenage clerk behind the counter called the tow truck driver and then returned to the counter to watch Sergio sign papers. The teen was acne-spotted and limp-haired, but he was dressed in a clean blue uniform shirt with khaki pants, and he was friendly enough. Sorry your car broke down, dude, he said. Hey, do you want to buy a lottery ticket for tomorrow's drawing? It could help pay for car repairs. No thanks, Sergio said. He was trying to take a breathe deeply because the gas station convenience store smelled like pork rinds and dirty socks. But he involuntarily sucked in air when Lucky Boy said in his soprano-toned child's voice, It's your lucky day. Hey, dude, the teen said. Cool doll. It's not a doll. Whatever, it's still cool. Sergio looked at Lucky Boy and shrugged. Okay, I'll take that ticket after all. Who knows? Exactly, the clerk memed. He rang up a ticket. It was nearly 3 a.m. when the tow truck driver dropped Sergio off at his apartment building. Sergio didn't bother to explain Lucky Boy to the heavyset driver, who eyed the toy and Sergio with suspicion. Tiptoeing through the hallway to his apartment, outside his apartment, he managed to open and close his door without being pestered. It seemed that there was an hour past which Mrs. Bailey would not stay up. He looked at the toy he still carried. Maybe it is my lucky day after all. Lucky Boy emitted his mischievous giggle. Smiling, Sergio took Lucky Boy into his bedroom and set him on top of his cherry bureau next to the ceramic tray. Then he emptied his soggy pockets, stripped off his ruined clothes, took a hot shower, and fell into bed. 2.5 hours later, his alarm nearly catapulted him across the room. Groaning, Sergio sleepwalked through getting dressed, then called a cab. Any wise words? Sergio asked Lucky Boy before he left the apartment. Lucky Boy giggled and said again, "Today's your lucky day." Sergio couldn't say he agreed with that assessment, but technically the day was still ongoing. Who knew what could happen? Running on just 2.5 hours of sleep, he sure could use a little luck. The day went by in a sleep-deprived blur. He was a walking zombie, and when Dale corrected him on his math for the 10th time, the last time being when Sergio added 6 and 7 and came up with 15, he finally admitted, "Dale, I'm sorry. I'm asleep on my feet. My SUV broke down in the rain last night. I got 2.5 hours of sleep." "Go home," Dale said. Sergio flinched. Was he being fired? Dale laughed. "You're not being punished. We're not total ogres here. You need to sleep. When you need sleep, you need sleep. Go home and sleep. When you come back, maybe you can tell me again what 6 plus 7 is." When Sergio let Violet know he was leaving, she offered to lend him her car. "I can get someone to take me to your place later to get it. We can go out to that gallery opening I want us to go to. You'll be resting up by the end of the day, right?" Sergio started to nod, then he stopped himself. He didn't want to go to a gallery opening. If this was his lucky day, didn't he deserve to tell the truth for a change? He shook his head and refused to accept the car keys Violet was thrusting in his direction. "I'm just going to call a cab," he said. "Then I'm going to go to bed and sleep straight through until morning. I don't want to go out later." Text. Violet gave him the little pout he used to think was kind of cute. He turned away from her and headed back to his office to call a cab. "Why don't these people have cell phones?" "I'm sorry, but I'm so confused. Why don't they have cell phones?" On his way home in the cab, Sergio heard a news report about the big lottery. Something about one of the winners buying a winning ticket at a gas station downtown. He wondered if it was the gas station he went to the previous night. He should check his ticket. By the time Sergio returned home, he was in a semi-conscious state. He didn't have enough energy to check his lottery ticket. Instead, he fell into bed and slept for 4 hours. He woke a little after 8 p.m. Feeling not even a little guilty about his latest lie to Violet, he ordered a pepperoni pizza. Taking it into his bed because he was still too tired to think, Sergio turned on the TV. The local news was ending. The perky female co-anchor said, "And to end on a light note, 5 people drew the winning ticket numbers for our latest big jackpot. One of these tickets was bought right here in our town. Congratulations to the winner, whoever you are." "That's right, the ticket." Sergio jumped off the bed. He dashed to a ceramic tray and dug for the ticket. Grabbing it, he picked up his phone, bringing up the winning numbers on the screen. He compared them to the numbers on his ticket. He blinked and compared them again. They matched. Every number matched. Sergio jumped up and shouted, "Yes!" Above him, thunder feet pounded on the floor. "Same to you," he shouted. Sergio ran to the bureau and picked up Lucky Boy. He held the toy out like a dance partner and spun around the room. "You're brilliant. Absolutely brilliant." Lucky Boy sounded off his funny little giggle. Sergio mimicked the giggle and threw himself on his bed. He kicked his feet up in the air and whooped. Thunder feet pounded again. "To hell with you," he shouted. He wasn't going to put up with the crap anymore. He had the means to fix all the problems he had in his life now. Oh yeah, things were going to change. Oh jeez. Sorry, quick break. The next day, Sergio called in sick to work. When Violet telephoned later to check on him, he let the answering machine pick up. Then he visited the lottery headquarters to claim his winnings. Because he was one of the 5 people with winning numbers, after taxes, he ended up with just a little over $600,000. That was okay. It was plenty. Back at home, Sergio relaxed in his living room and pondered what to do. My book. Oop. Oh no. I lost my place. No! There it is. He had so many choices now. The car repair place had called to tell him that he had an oil leak that bled the vehicle dry of oil. The resulting engine damage would cost thousands to repair. Should he spend it or just sell the thing as it was for parts to get something new? Grinning, Sergio stood and went to get Lucky Boy. Carrying the toy back into the living room, feeling only a little silly, he asked Lucky Boy, "Should I repair my car or get a new one?" "You deserve good things," Lucky Boy sang out. "You're right, I do." Sergio sat back and put Lucky Boy in his lap. "What kind of car do I deserve?" "You deserve to have your dreams come true." "Really?" Sergio thought about his dream car, the car he'd always wanted. A car that his father had once called an impractical waste of money. This from a man who had 17 cars. Wasn't having more than 2 or 3 cars an impractical waste of money? I mean, it depends on how many drivers you have in a house. If you have a large household with like a bunch of drivers, you probably want to have like at least one car for each driver. But from what we can gather, it's just Sergio's mom and dad living there. So, yeah, I guess 17 is a little overdoing it. Where was it? You don't buy cars for flash. Okay. You don't buy cars for flash, son. I changed the accent. One sec. Let me try to remember how I did the accent. You don't buy cars for flash, son. Tony always said. You buy them for value. You buy flash and just asking to be ripped off. You'll pay more than the car is worth, and you'll be a magnet for car thieves. What if I like flash? Sergio asked out loud. You deserve flash. Lucky Boy piped up. What should I buy? Sergio asked. Buy a flashy sports car. The more expensive, the better. Sergio fired off a finger gun at the little toy. I like how you think. He ignored the part of him that was a smidgen creeped out by the fact he was having a conversation with the toy. Lucky Boy had given him better advice than he'd ever gotten from anyone else. Who was he to care about where the advice came from? So he bought a bright red, expensive, flashy sports car, high-end, highly visible, and as impressive as all get out. Sergio's new car made him feel way more impressive than a silly aviator-style watch. And speaking of his watch, what kind of watch should I buy? He asked Lucky Boy after he got home with his new car. You deserve bling! Sergio got dressed and headed back out in his flashy car. He went to the best jewelry store in town, and he spent $37,000 on a new gold watch. Now that was impressive. After he got the watch, he stopped and called Violet. She'd just gotten home from work. How'd you like to have dinner at the Horizon? He asked, grinning when she sucked in her breath. The Horizon was the best restaurant in town. Violet squealed. What's the occasion? I'll tell you when I pick you up. Meet me out in front of your building. I thought your SUV was still in the shop. She said, It is. I bought myself a new ride. It's red. You can't miss it. Okay, Violet said, drawing out the word as if she thought he'd lost his marbles. He laughed and hung up, driving to Violet's apartment building and revving the engine as he neared her building. He stomped on the accelerator to zoom forward, then slammed on the brakes, coming to a screeching stop next to the curb, just a foot from her. She stared in open-mouthed shock at his new wheels. What do you think? He asked as the powerful engine rumbled and she gaped at the car. How? Violet asked. Project managers don't make that much more than senior architects. Get in. I'll tell you all about it. Violet beamed at him as she opened the door. Over a steak and lobster dinner, complete with huge slices of the most decadent chocolate cake he'd ever eaten, Sergio told Violet about his lottery win. He didn't, however, tell her about Lucky Boy. That somehow seemed like a secret he needed to keep to himself. And he should have kept the lottery win to himself, too. Violet immediately started telling him about how he should spend the money. You should buy a boat, she told him as she plowed through her slice of cake. We could go out on the lake every weekend. Oh, and you should buy a timeshare. Then we could go to different places every weekend. Maybe we could even take a trip around the world. Oh, wait, a cruise. We should take a cruise, or we could go. Sergio wasn't really listening to her. He was savoring the amazing chocolate cake. But he was like, at appropriate intervals until he noticed she wasn't talking anymore, and he also noticed that she whacked his knuckles with his fork. Ow! What? I said, what is that? She gestured at his new watch. Oh yeah, Sergio suddenly remembered. I forgot to show this to you. I just got it this afternoon. It cost $37,000, but I deserve it. Sergio took another bite of cake. Violet touched the watch reverently and beamed. She looked at him, her eyes bright. So, what did you get me? I was wondering all evening. I figured you had to have gotten me something since you won all that money. I figure you're saving it for the end of dinner, but now I can't wait any longer. What did you get me? Sergio set down his fork. He looked down. Oh, poor Violet. Oh, poor Violet. What? Violet asked. You did get me something, right? Sergio winced. You got yourself a new sports car and a $37,000 watch, and you didn't get me anything? Violet's voice rose at least an octave at the end of the question. I think, he told himself, surely you can come up with some good reason he didn't buy her anything. Violet stood and threw down her napkin. Take me home right now. Sergio didn't argue. He didn't have the energy, and he realized he didn't care that she was angry. He just took her home. Okay. The fact that he doesn't care that she's angry at him, the fact that he didn't even remember to get her anything, shows that he doesn't give a heck. He doesn't care about her. He only cares about himself and his own self-absorbed needs. Like, I'm sorry, but like, come on, dude. If you have a girlfriend, if you actually care about her, and you win a bunch of money, like, you want to get your partner something. Like, I don't know. Sorry, but this really ticks me off. Like, okay, I wouldn't be as bad as Violet and be like totally furious at my partner for not getting me something, but I'd be like a little ticked, I guess, because like he spent $37,000 on a watch, and he also bought himself a super flashy sports car, which also runs about $30K. So that's looking at like $60,000, $60 to $80,000 just that alone, and just like with the car and the watch. And he didn't bother to even think about his girlfriend. That shows that they're not a good match. Like, I'm sorry, but they're not a match. They're definitely not a match made in heaven. They're probably a match made in hell to torture each other. Anyway. There, Violet got out of the car and started to walk away. Then she turned back and said, You better have something for me tomorrow. She marched off, her hips swaying emphatically in her wake. Sergio didn't give Violet a thought after he left her apartment building. He was feeling too good to be bothered by her tantrum. Okay. Just break up with the... I'm sorry, but this hurts. Like, he doesn't care about her. She obviously kind of cares about him, but she's also a bit of a gold digger. I just... Ugh. He obviously doesn't give a shit about how she feels. So why is he even bothering to be with her? Like, I'm sorry, but she doesn't deserve him. Although, to be honest, she's not exactly very good herself, so... When he got home, Sergio showed his watch to Lucky Boy. What do you think? He asked. Lucky Boy giggled. You look impressive. The next day, Sergio put on his new watch and went to work in his new car. Nice wheels, Clive said when he walked into Sergio's office a little after 9. This position must pay more than I thought it did. Close the door, Sergio said. He learned his lesson from Violet. Telling people about his lottery win could be tricky. Clive raised his eyebrows and closed the door. He flopped into one of Sergio's visitor chairs. What's the big secret? Did you rob a bank? No, Sergio grinned. He lowered his voice. I won the lottery. Clive laughed. Good one. Really? Because I bought a ticket because... Sergio stopped himself. He'd been about to tell Clive about Lucky Boy. Then he got a strong feeling that he should keep that bit to himself. He covered his near mistake by saying, because I had a win. Excuse me. Oh my. And I won. Clive shook his head. Good for you. He spotted Sergio's watch. Nice bling. I deserve some bling. Sure you do. So, what's next? Oh, I know. How about you buy your good friend Clive a swimming pool? Unlike Violet, Clive was kidding. Or at least Sergio hoped he was. He decided to go with a kidding response. Ha! Sergio rolled his eyes. Win your own lottery. Then you can buy your own swimming pool. Party pooper. When I buy my swimming pool, you can come over and use it. Are you buying one? Sergio shrugged. Actually, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. I need to ask... Oops, he almost let slip again. Clive looked at him. Who are you going to ask? Your mommy? Sergio flipped a pen at Clive. Funny. No, not my mommy. I mean, just ask, in general, like my intuition. Ask the universe, like that. That's still not very believable. Sorry. Sec. When did you get spiritual? Having money is an exalting experience. Clive laughed. Well, even so, you better get to work. Dale was on a rampage yesterday about having to pick up your load because you were out sick. And the Jenkins project is kind of a mess. Sergio frowned. I'm not criticizing, Clive said. I couldn't do what you've been doing half as well as you have. But I'm just warning you that the powers that be aren't going to care about your car or your bling. Sergio sighed. You're right. Obviously. I made a mess of things a couple days ago. I need to fix it. Clive stood, leaned over Sergio's desk, and raised a hand. High five. Sergio slapped Clive's hand. I'm honestly happy for you, Clive said. Enjoy. Don't cut off your nose to spite your face. What does that even mean? Sergio asked. I'm not really sure. It's just what my mother said whenever I did something dumb in reaction to something. Actually, I don't think it's applicable here, but whatever. Just be careful with your decision. I forgot that line was in here. Huh. I forgot about that line. Okay. Yes, Dad. Clive laughed and left Sergio's office. Sergio stared at his watch for several minutes, then got to work. And he was still working long after everyone else left. Even Violet. She wasn't speaking to him. It was after midnight when he left the building and headed for his... Where was his car? His nice new, bright and shiny sports car wasn't in his parking space. What the heck? Sergio turned a full circle in his empty parking spot. Then he sighed, went back inside the office, and called the police. The police officer who took his stolen car report was nice enough to give Sergio a ride home. That was kind of fun. Sergio enjoyed listening to the chatter on the police radio, and he liked the way the leather creaked when he moved in his seat. He wasn't as keen on the weird smell coming from the back seat, a combination of bleach and something sour smelling. He didn't ask about it. Sorry you got your car stolen. The first full day you owned it. Sorry you got your car stolen the first full day you owned it, the young officer said when he pulled outside Sergio's building. His name tag read Neil. Sergio assumed it was a last name. That bites the big one. Sergio unbuckled his seatbelt and turned toward Officer Neil. He knows the officer's buzz cut was recent. He could see white skin between his brown hair and the tan line on his neck. And you don't think I'll get it back? It's probably out of state by now, Neil said. Or it's in parts. His voice broke often, like a teenager going through puberty. Sergio shook his head. Well, at least it was insured. He reached for the passenger's door handle. Yeah, but they get you there. And there, too. You'll get the blue book for it, but that won't be as much as you paid for it. You're out taxes and license and all that. Yeah, but... Sergio smiled at Neil as he pushed the door open. Well, you're a ray of sunshine. Neil laughed. Sorry, this job tends to create pessimists. Sergio marveled that Officer Neil had been on the job long enough to become a pessimist. He wondered what Officer Neil's goals were. Did he have a big dream? Thanks for the ride. Sergio said as he got out of the squad car. He waved as Neil drove away, and he went in the front of the entrance. Went in the front entrance of his building, whistling. He wasn't going to let this get him down. It was just a little setback. His luck had changed, or maybe not. oh, this scene. I love this scene. Okay. As he got on the elevator and pushed the button for the fourth floor, his upstairs neighbor dashed up behind him and shoved her way past him. He flicked a look of annoyance at her. She mistook it for something else. What are you looking at? Thunderfeet snapped as she pounded on the fifth floor button. Wearing tight exercise pants and a sports bra, she must have thought he was admiring her. He wasn't. Not that she was bad looking. She was actually cute, slender and just curvy enough, with blonde hair and a nice face. But she was too tall for him. She was at least 5'10" to his 5'7". Not to mention her personality ruined everything about her looks. Nothing, Sergio said as the elevator made a clunking sound and started to rise. Nothing at all. Thunderfeet didn't smell good. She smelled like sweat and cigarette smoke. He concentrated on breathing through his mouth. She sniffed and looked down sideways. You better not wake me up again tonight. Sorry. Sergio glanced at her incredulously. Me? Wake you up. Don't start this. She glared at him. He ignored her as the elevator doors opened and he got out on his floor. One of the cheap beige carpet squares that covered the hallways in the building was sticking up just outside the elevator, and he tripped over it. He managed to catch himself, but he staggered a few feet before he did. He heard her mutter, "Loser," as the elevator doors closed behind him. His shoulders tightened as he started down the hall, and by the time he was at his door, his good mood was slipping away. And just as he took out his keys, Mrs. Bailey threw open her door behind him and sang out, "I just made oatmeal raisin cookies." Oh, no. I'm sorry. Pause. This part is kind of sad to me. Sergio whirled around and yelled, "I hate raisins!" Mrs. Bailey, a plastic wrap covered plate of cookies extended out in front of her, drew back. Her face bunched up in the middle like someone pulled out on a drawstring attached to her skin. Her lower lip quivered. "Well, why have you never said so?" "I was being polite," Sergio shouted. "But I don't feel like being polite right now. In fact, I don't feel like being here right now. I just want to be left alone." Mrs. Bailey's eyes moistened. She nodded her head and quietly retreated into her apartment. Sergio felt like a jerk, but he also felt exhilarated. Saying what he wanted was very freeing. Inside his apartment, Sergio went through his usual post-work routine. When he finished, now wearing his sweats and t-shirt, he looked at Lucky Boy, who still sat all jaunty and bright on top of the bureau. "What should I do now?" Sergio asked the toy. "Everyone who's someone should have a house," Lucky Boy said. Sergio stared at the toy's wide smile, and he began smiling just as wide. What a great idea! His own house! Why not buy his own house? He had plenty of money now for a down payment. He said Lucky Boy, praising him with, "You're brilliant." Lucky Boy wasn't done throwing out ideas. "Cash is king." "Yeah," Lucky Boy said. "Go from bad to good." "That's even more brilliant." This was the toy's best idea yet. He could buy an inexpensive fixer-upper with cash, gut it, and completely redesign it. He could use all the skills he'd honed at the firm to create a true masterpiece of reinventation. "You are so smart," Sergio told Lucky Boy. He gave the toy a pat on one of his rosy cheeks. Lucky Boy giggled. Sergio headed to the phone. He needed to contact a real estate agent. "To go places, you gotta have wheels," Lucky Boy said. Sergio stopped. He turned to Lucky Boy and laughed. "Well, I'm glad someone in the room is thinking. I forgot I have no car." He frowned. "What should I get this time?" "Same thing. You should have bigger and better," Lucky Boy said. Sergio punched the air. "Perfect. You're absolutely right. I'll get a big pickup." He turned to head toward the phone again. "That's what I'll do first." And he did. In the morning, he drove his new black 8-cylinder extra cab, long bed, lifted pickup with massive tires to work. Yeah, it was a Sunday, and he wished he could be out looking at houses, but since he'd missed work on Thursday, he was totally behind. Even without missing that day, he'd have to work today. Now he was going to have to work tomorrow, too. And I have another text. When he parked in a spot, he decided it looked even more impressive than the red sports car. Seeing the shiny black and chrome Roadmaster sitting in his reserved spot made up for being at the office on Saturday for the third week in a row. Yeah, it was a Saturday. Sorry. Sergio locked his truck and gave the hood a pat. He'd had the dealer add an upgraded security system to his new truck, so he knew he'd find the truck here waiting for him at the end of the day. If someone tried to take this baby, that someone was going to have a very bad day. The dealer had been happy to sell Sergio the security upgrade, but he'd been strangely against Sergio's request to have the full suspension lift added to the truck. Sergio would have thought the guy would be happy to make more money, but instead he warned, a lifted truck is a tilt or tip hazard. You'd be amazed how easily it is to roll a truck when it's lifted. Sergio thanked him for the warning, but told him to do it anyway. And he was glad he did. Sergio strutted into the office, feeling like he was at least 3 inches taller than he was before. He felt even taller when he got to his office and received a phone call from his insurer. They were going to pay out the full purchase price of his stolen vehicle, and the taxes and licensing costs were being refunded because they didn't go through before the car was taken. So much for Officer Neal's pessimism. Ha! Sergio was on a roll. Or maybe not. When Sergio got off the phone, he looked up to find Violet standing in his office doorway. Because it was Saturday, she was dressed casually. She wore tight jeans and a flouncy hem and a filmy yellow blouse with a feathered fringe. She tapped her foot. The flouncy hem bounced and her fringe danced. I knew I'd find you here, Violet said. Oh, hi, Violet. Oh, hi, Violet. Me. Sergio frowned. He needed to get back to work. What's wrong? What's wrong? Violet uncrossed her arms and stomped to his desk. She recrossed her arms and looked down at him. Did you buy me a present yet? Sergio pressed his lips together. Oops. He hadn't even thought of it. This shows that he doesn't care. I've been really busy, Sergio said. Violet snorted. You're not really going to try that, are you? With that ridiculous truck sitting outside? It had to take time to buy that monstrosity. You could manage the time to go to the dealership, and you couldn't pop into a jewelry store and get me a little something? I'm sorry, Violet. I have no excuse. I've just been so wrapped up in the excitement of it all. Wrapped up in yourself, you mean? Is that so bad? What? Being selfish? Yeah, that's bad. Sergio glared at her. If it's selfish to be wrapped up in yourself, then you're kind of the pot calling the kettle. Oh my gosh, I'm stuck. Okay. If it's selfish to be wrapped up in yourself, then you're kind of the pot calling the kettle black, aren't you? What kind of insult is that? You've never heard the idiom, the pot calling the kettle black? Sure, but she raised her eyebrows. Are you calling me selfish? If the shoe fits. Well, screw you and your stupid idioms. Before Sergio could say anything else, Violet stormed out of his office. For several seconds, Sergio stared at her. Then he shrugged and got back to work. Boy! What? Okay. I'm sorry, but he just shrugs after his girlfriend just storms out on him. He doesn't care. Which means that he doesn't care about her. Which means that the two aren't a good match. Which means that the two should just break up or something. I'm sorry, but this is bad. It's kind of toxic because it's just gonna fall apart. I'm pretty sure we all know that this relationship is just gonna fall apart. Okay. At the end of a very long day, Sergio dragged his tired body to his impressive new truck. He was frustrated. Even if he returned tomorrow and worked all day, he'd still be way behind on Monday morning. At this rate, he was never going to be able to look for a house, much less have time to renovate one. He knew he wasn't home enough these days to really worry about what his home looked like, but he was tired of living under Thunder Feet and tired of living across the hall from Mrs. Bailey. Besides, he decided to live someplace better than this cubic apartment building with its cheap carpet squares. But how could he move and work? There weren't enough hours in the day. And what was he going to do about Violet? As soon as he changed clothes, Sergio asked Lucky Boy this very question. You deserve to be happy, Lucky Boy said. I agree, Sergio said, but he sat down on the edge of his bed. Violet doesn't make me happy. This was a little bit of a revelation. Huh, Sergio said. He thought back over his year with Violet. Had she ever made him happy? Not exactly. Not really. No, not at all. Having a girlfriend made him feel good. He'd never had one in high school or college. All he'd done was pine for the out-of-reach Sophia in high school, and in college, he never had time for dating. He'd gone out a few times since then, but Violet was his first steady girl. And that's why he dated her. Not because she made him happy, but because she kept going out with him. Having a steady girlfriend made him feel impressive. So this guy is basically using her. He's just using her so he feels better about his sorry ass. What should I do about Violet? Sergio asked Lucky Boy again. If it's broken, fix it or get rid of it, Lucky Boy said. That seemed like good advice. Did Sergio want to fix things with Violet? No, not at all. He did not. Okay, then the solution was simple. He leaned over to his nightstand and picked up the phone. He dialed Violet. When she picked up, it was obvious she'd been sleeping. Hello? She breathed into the phone. Violet, what time is it, Sergio? Can't you wait until a reasonable hour to call and apologize? Sergio rolled his eyes. I'm not calling to apologize. I'm going to break up with you. What? It just sounded like you said break up with you. That is what I said, and I don't want to go out with you anymore. Violet was silent. She was still on the phone. He could hear her breathing. I should have realized it when you didn't buy me anything. If I loved you and you really wanted to be with you, buying something should have been a no-brainer. Oh, wait, no. This is Sergio. I should have realized it when I didn't buy you anything. If I loved you and really wanted to be with you, buying you something should have been a no-brainer, but I forget you, Sergio, Violet said. You're not good enough for me anyway. You're a funny-looking little man, and I'm too much of a catch for you. Violet slammed down her phone, and the line went dead. Sergio sat for a second to see if he felt bad. He didn't. At least Violet's out of that toxic situation. Oh my god, finally. I'm sorry, but he said it himself. If I loved you and really wanted to be with you, buying you something should have been a no-brainer. He didn't buy her anything. He didn't even think about it. She told him twice. And he didn't do anything. He didn't even feel bad about it. And again, Sergio sat for a second to see if he felt bad. He didn't. He doesn't feel bad. He just... I'm sorry, but... He looked at Lucky Boy. Great advice. Lucky Boy giggled. Okay, so Sergio's girlfriend problem was solved. But what about his job? How could he be happy and work the kind of hours he was working? What should I do about my job? Sergio asked Lucky Boy. Better things are on the horizon. Sergio sank down onto his bed. Wow, he'd never thought. He stared at Lucky Boy, and Lucky Boy's big blue eyes stared back. Why hadn't Sergio thought about that? Why was he still at his job? He hadn't been happy at the firm for some time, and instead of looking for something else, he just applied for the project manager job. Talk about thinking inside the box. He had to get out of the box. Way out of the box. Sergio stood and started pacing back and forth by his bed. The seed of an idea was sprouting in his mind. What if... He turned and looked at Lucky Boy. What do you think of me starting my own business? You deserve to be your own boss, Lucky Boy said. It would be impressive. Sergio grinned. Yes, it would. He thought about his dad. Even though Tony never said so, he was disappointed in his son's career. Sergio felt it every time Tony asked his stupid skyscraper question. This country runs on the backbone of entrepreneurism, Tony liked to say. Oh, wait, no. This country runs on the backbone of entrepreneurism, Tony liked to say. Men like me keep our nation strong. I changed the accent. Whatever. If Sergio wanted to make his dad proud, he needed to be an entrepreneur, and he knew just how to do it. But first, he had to quit his job, which he did the next morning. Okay. Oh, there's something in the chat. What? I don't know what that means. One sec. Oh my gosh, loud clattering of my mouse. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to. Shoot it? What do you mean by shoot it? I don't understand, but okay. Okay then. Where was I? But first he had to quit his job, which he did the next morning. You're really quitting? Clive said when he walked into Sergio's office 15 minutes after Sergio informed Dale that he was done with his new job. What the hell are you playing at? Dale had asked. The top of his bald head turned red and he yelled, You apply for a pivotal job, get it, make cash of it, and then you quit? You realize you're done at this firm too, right? Sergio nodded. Well, yes. That was going to be the next thing I told you. I'm quitting entirely. What the hell is wrong with you? Dale shouted. You're a brightest architect. You're throwing your career away. Sergio shrugged. You can think that if you want. I'm going into business for myself. Dale guffawed. Oh, that's rich. You'll be homeless in no time. Sergio shrugged again. Nope. I'm going to be a successful, impressive entrepreneur. Dale shook his head and strode out of Sergio's office. Yes, Sergio told to Clive. No, I'm really quitting. Clive leaned against the wall and watched Sergio put his personal belongings in a cardboard box. What are you going to do? Get outside the box. Clive laughed and pointed at Sergio's arms, which were both currently inside the box. Ha, lols. I don't know why I said it like that. Oh my god. Sergio smiled too. You know what I mean. Not exactly, but I wish you luck. Oh, I have a lot of luck now. I have Lucky Boy. He laughed. I noticed his laugh sounded oddly a little like Lucky Boy's. Giggle. Oops. He hadn't meant to say that. Clive frowned. You're a lucky boy? Is that what you just said? Sergio blinked and lied. Sure. Clive held out a fist and Sergio bumped it with his. Keep in touch, Clive said. I will, Sergio replied. But he didn't. He had too much going on. For one thing, he had to find the right place to renovate into a new home. Sergio thought finding a fixer-upper was going to be easy. The town's full of them, and after years of working on residential renovations, he knew plenty of real estate agents. Which one should he call, though? Sergio sat at a small retro dining table and ate Kung Pao chicken up the carton while he pondered his upcoming house hunt. Lucky Boy sat on the table in front of him. It occurred to Sergio as he ordered his dinner that leaving the toy in the bedroom was a little discourteous. After all, Lucky Boy had been the catalyst for a lot of great things in Sergio's life, and was only in a few days. Here, Sergio was a man of leisure who was about to embark on an impressive entrepreneurial adventure, and he was rudely ignoring the little guy who had made it all possible. And so he brought Lucky Boy out to join him for dinner. I wish I could share this with you, Sergio said to Lucky Boy, but I don't think I don't think toys eat. Sergio forked up some of the spicy chicken. He chewed, swallowed, and mused. So which real estate agent should I pick? Pretty is good, Lucky Boy said. Sergio looked at Lucky Boy. Well, aren't you a little Casanova? Didn't I just get rid of a girlfriend? Lucky Boy giggled. Are you saying I should find a better one? Lucky Boy giggled again. Okay, Sergio said. Pretty, let's see. He thought about the agents he knew. One of them, Eve, was pretty, but he was also reasonably sure she was married. Pretty doesn't do us any good if she's married, he pointed out. You deserve a great girl who dotes on you. Yes, I do. Violet had never doted on him. Good riddance to her. Someone better was out there. He thought for a minute. He snapped his fingers. There was an agent named Claire Fredericks who was petite and soft spoken. They once had a conversation about science fiction, and she said she liked it. That was a good start, wasn't it? As far as Sergio knew, she was single. He picked up the phone and called Claire to schedule an appointment to look at houses the next day. Sergio's father would like Claire. Sergio decided as he sat with her at a conference table in her real estate office. Not only was Claire small and slender, but she was dark-haired too. She looked Italian. He didn't know if she was, but she looked it. That would be good enough for Tony. And he could hear his mother now. Oh, the baby. Okay. Oh, the babies you two could bank together. She always said that when she tried to sum up with an Italian girl. What exactly did you have in mind? Claire asked, swiveling to face Sergio. Sergio decided that Claire wasn't what most people would call pretty. Her features were a little too strong for that. But he thought she was eye-catching. She had huge, somewhat almond-shaped, very dark brown eyes. He thought of them as comic book eyes. Claire's face would have made a great superhero face. This close to her, he could smell her perfume, which was light but distinctive. It smelled like a combination of fruit and flowers, kind of citrusy and kind of sweet. He liked it. He had to force himself to think about houses instead of about Claire. I recently came into a substantial amount of money, Serge told her, and I want to leverage it into not just a new home for me, but a multi-million-dollar design business. To end that, I want something that needs a total overhaul. And I'm thinking something industrial, maybe. Something with a massive architectural potential. Is there anything available in the old warehouse district, the part that was rezoned? Claire nodded several times. Oh, how exciting! I'd love to be part of helping you build a multi-million-dollar business. And I think your plan is excellent. Your design aesthetic is perfect for that kind of building rehab. I didn't know you'd notice my design aesthetic, Sergio said. He blushed. Claire smiled at him. I noticed more than I let on. Sergio smiled back at Claire. He was sure she was flirting with him. Claire cleared her throat. There are several properties that fit your description, but there's one particular that I think will be perfect for you. Do you want to go see it? Absolutely. And they went to see it, and it was perfect. The perfect property was an old standalone warehouse that was just at the edge of the area recently rezoned to residential. This meant it was the best of both worlds. It would fit the other warehouse rebuilds around it, but it was also backed up by the lush greenery of the neighboring, well-established residential area. At 5,500 square feet, the property was ideal for what Sergio wanted to do with it, which was make a spacious living area with a lot of architectural wow and an adjoining office with and an adjoining office space with even more eye-catching structural features. The warehouse had a brick exterior that was in fantastic condition, and its interior support beams and load-bearing walls looked sound. Yes, it was impressive, and Sergio absolutely deserved it. But it cost more than he planned to spend. Sergio did some calculations. He'd already gotten the insurance payout on the car and the refund of the tax and license fees. The truck hadn't cost as much as the sports car, so he was ahead there. If he bought this old warehouse, he was pretty sure he'd have enough left to complete the renovations. Should he go for it? Of course he should. Let's make an offer, Sergio said to Claire. She clapped her hands, then got down to business, writing up the offer. I'll go present this right now. I expect the owner to accept it. Do you want to go to dinner to celebrate when he does? Is it? Claire studied him for a moment. Then she did a cute little half shrug and said, Sure. Sergio grinned. I'm so glad I called you. Claire smiled back. Me too. Oh, my throat. My throat's trying to get out on me, but I still have like 20 pages left, so let's just finish this. Sergio went home to wait for word on his offer. There, he told Lucky Boy what happened. Lucky Boy giggled. While he waited for Claire's call telling him he got the place, Sergio started making sketches of his ideas for it. He'd already drawn plans for the whole first floor when Claire called. Another text. Got it, she said when he answered. Great. I need to wrap up a couple things, then I'll be free for the evening. Can I pick you up? Sergio asked. Sure. They set a time and Sergio hung up. He looked at Lucky Boy. Where should I take her to dinner? He asked. I want to impress her. You deserve to go where you want, Lucky Boy said. Impress yourself. You're right. I should impress me for a change. Dude. I'm sorry. Oh. Well, I like that Mexican place downtown, the one with the fountain in the courtyard. I'll take her there. Lucky Boy giggled. Sergio played with his plans for a few more minutes, then he got ready for dinner, putting on a pair of casual black slacks and a gray and black striped shirt. Blaine Grack. Oh my god. That's how you know I'm getting tired. Okay. Gray and black striped dress shirt. He grabbed a black leather jacket to finish off the ensemble, and he started toward the door, only cringing a little when Thunder Feet started to step on his ceiling. When he reached the door, his gaze fell on Lucky Boy, who still sat at the table. Sergio felt bad leaving Lucky Boy home alone. He was giving Sergio all this great advice. Did he deserve to sit around like a knickknack in an empty apartment? No way. Sergio picked up Lucky Boy, tucked him under his arm, and headed out the door. When Sergio glanced at Mrs. Bailey's closed door before he walked down the hallway, Lucky Boy giggled. Mrs. Bailey hadn't bothered Sergio since his raisin outburst. He was hoping her hurt feelings or whatever weren't keeping her inside her own. What? Oh my god. He was hoping her hurt feelings or whatever was keeping her inside her own walls. Or whatever was keeping her inside her own walls would hold until he'd moved into his new place. Okay, dude, if you don't want anything to do with a neighbor, just be respectful about it. I'm sorry, but Oy Sorry. Stretch. Okay. Stretch. Okay. In his lifted truck, Sergio put Lucky Boy in one of the cup holders on the console. When that put Lucky Boy in more of a hole than seemed polite, Sergio dug up some paperwork out of the glove box, folded it up, and made a sort of elevated seat for Lucky Boy. Lucky Boy giggled. He might not want to do that when Claire's around, Sergio said, starting the engine. Other people's judgments are irrelevant, Lucky Boy said. Sergio glanced at his new friend. You're right, actually. Laugh if you want to. Lucky Boy giggled. Sergio pulled out of his parking garage. Do you think I should take her something? Flowers? Too much or not enough? Roses speak from the heart, Lucky Boy said. Okay, roses it is. Sergio stopped by a florist and bought a dozen pink roses. Judging from Claire's broad eyes and big smile when she spotted them on the dashboard, he made a good choice. She looked at the flower. She took the flowers from Sergio. For me? Of course. She reached out for them and then frowned. What's wrong? Are you allergic? No, I just think they'll wilt while we're at dinner. Sergio shook his head. I had them put those little vials of water on the end of each stem. Clara looked at him and smiled wildly. Then she hugged him. You're so thoughtful. Sergio accepted the hug and gave Lucky Boy a thumbs up behind Claire's back. As soon as Claire was buckled into her seat, she noticed Lucky Boy. She picked him up. What's this? Sergio tensed, feeling strangely possessive of the little guy. That's Lucky Boy. He's sort of like a mascot. Claire gave him a puzzled look. Sergio hesitated, then decided to go ahead and tell her the whole story. Before, it had seemed wrong to talk about Lucky Boy. Now it felt disrespectful not to talk about him. Not telling the truth, it felt like Sergio was taking credit for the recent turn of events of his life. But, Not telling the truth felt like Sergio was taking credit for the recent turn of events his life had taken. Lucky Boy should have some recognition. Sergio told Claire the whole story. Claire listened with rapt attention. Her brow was going higher and higher as the story went on. When Sergio was done, she turned Lucky Boy over. How does it work? Sergio shrugged. You're not curious? You don't want to take it apart and find out? She started tugging on Lucky Boy's arms. Sergio grabbed Lucky Boy away from Claire. No! Claire's eyebrows climbed a notch higher. Sorry, Sergio said. I guess I'm sentimental about it. Claire looked from Lucky Boy to Sergio and back. I understand, she said. Sergio didn't think she did, but he didn't say anything else, and by then they'd arrived at the restaurant. How much longer is left? Page 123. Story ends on 140. So there's 17 pages. I think I can make that. Sorry as my throat gives out. I've been talking a lot this week. How's my computer doing on charge? What did I do? Sorry, I'm quickly checking something. Okay. Get out. The fifth. Oh my gosh. The next few weeks passed in a blur. While Sergio was waiting for the deal to close, he finished his designs. Then he submitted them for approval to the city permit offices while he talked to contractors. He looked for exactly the right team to work on his project, and it didn't take him long to find it. Soon after, he got approval, and the renovation began. Also, Sergio moved into his new place. He wasn't planning on leaving his old apartment before the renovations to his new place were done, but his lease came up for renewal, and he'd get a penalty if he left before the end of the year. That made no sense, so he let the lease lapse. He hired movers to pack up his stuff and move everything to the new property. So long, Thunderfeet. So long, Mrs. Bailey. Although the warehouse was a mess, filled with piles of demolished wood, concrete, and drywall, a maze of walls stripped to the studs, exposed pipes and wiring, Sergio was able to clear out a corner of it to stack his belongings, store his furniture, and set up his bed. He had electricity and one working bathroom, but he had no kitchen. He bought a small fridge for things like milk and sandwich fixings, but mostly he figured he could eat out or get takeout. It was basically urban camping. Sergio felt like he did when he was a little kid starting a new adventure. What do you think? He asked Lucky Boy when he set up the toy on a pile of boxes near the bed. Sergio did his patented moonwalk and spin and threw his arms up and out. Isn't this place going to be great? You deserve the best, Lucky Boy said. This will be the best when it's done. Lucky Boy giggled. Sergio, once again, found himself having long days, but being his own boss, he didn't mind it so much. He was enjoying overseeing his project until he wasn't. And he was enjoying Claire. Until he wasn't. The problem with the project was money. It turned out they'd underestimated the cost. He didn't have a budget big enough to do all he wanted to do. And if he couldn't do what he wanted to do, he wouldn't create an impressive space. And if he couldn't create an impressive space, he wouldn't be able to use his home as a platform for getting clients. Where can I get more money? Sergio asked Lucky Boy one evening. Rich people have lots of money. Sergio wasn't sure what to make of that, but he figured Lucky Boy would make it clear soon enough. Lucky Boy always told him what to do. Okay. By now, Sergio was taking Lucky Boy wherever he went. Lucky Boy helped him all day long. He helped Sergio pick out materials, make design decisions, and manage his team. I mean, not his team, his time. He even helped Sergio choose his food. Lucky Boy also advised him on other purchases, like all the electronics he was buying for the new place and all the casual clothes he was buying to replace his more formal work wardrobe. When Sergio worried about going through his money, Lucky Boy said, "You deserve the best." Lucky Boy had the same thing to say about Claire. Everything was great with Claire was great at first. She appreciated the places he took her and the flowers and gifts he bought her. When the money got tighter, he had to stop giving her gifts and start suggesting they stay at home for takeout, she began changing. Oh, she still acted sweet and all, but he was sure he could sense an undertone in the things she said. Of course, I don't mind having a picnic on the floor of your place. It sounded like, where do you get off making me sit on the floor like a cheapskate? Where do you get making me sit on the floor, cheapskate? It wasn't her words exactly, but it was the inflections of her words. Dude, you're bad at reading people. Oh my god. I'm sorry, but this guy literally admitted to being bad at reading people at the beginning of the story. So, and then there were the ways she was trying to improve him. She went about it in a sneaky way. She wouldn't tell him she didn't like his shirts. For example, she just bought him gifts of new shirts. She didn't tell him she hated his taste in music. She just bought him new CDs. It was becoming annoying. Then there were the helpful suggestions. When he was complaining that he wished he was taller, she said, well, you could always have lifts put in your shoes. You could always have Lift put in your shoes, sweetie. Why couldn't she have just been supportive and said, don't be silly, you're plenty tall? He was getting tired of coming up short, literally and figuratively. When Sergio asked Lucky Boy about Claire, he said, you deserve the girl of your dreams. Sergio agreed. He didn't need to stop. Well, he needed to stop wasting his time with women who weren't right for him. There was only one girl for him, and that girl was Sophia. He couldn't have her in high school, but things were different now. Not only did he deserve to have her, but she would be lucky to have him. He was going to have to break up with Claire. Unfortunately, meet the parents dinner was coming up. His mother had been bugging him to set it up for weeks, and the week before she'd called ostensibly to tell him he'd received his third invitation to his 10th high school reunion. But when she had him on the phone, she said, when are we going to meet your Claire? You keep putting me off, Sergio. It's not nice to put your mother off. 3 weeks ago, you said next week. 2 weeks ago, you said next week. A week ago, I get it, Mama. Oh, when are you going to stop putting... I get it, Mama. So, how about this week, he said. Perfect. You'll come on Saturday. He wished he hadn't agreed. Should I cancel the dinner? He asked Lucky Boy. Your father is rich, Lucky Boy said. Go to dinner, get a loan. Sergio had never asked Dad for money, but Lucky Boy was right. Tony was rich. Why not ask for a loan when he went for dinner? He'd have to break up with Claire after that. As Sergio suspected, his parents liked Claire on sight. His mother fussed over Claire so much. He said, she's not royalty, Mama. Well, I'm just being friendly. His mother patted her graying black hair, which she had twisted into an elaborate bun. She smoothed the full skirt of her emerald green cocktail dress. His mother liked to get dolled up. Clara lifted her chin and said, Sergio, don't you know all women want to be treated like royalty? Fine, Sergio said. Then I'm going to leave you regal ladies here. I need to talk to Papa. Tony had greeted Sergio and Claire, then retreated back into his study. His work wasn't done for the day, but he boomed, come in, when Sergio knocked on the door. Sergio stepped into his father's domain. As always, he stopped and looked in awe at the space. Tony loved historic architectural details, and he designed an office filled with so many carved wood features and so many filigreed trimmings that looked like something out of the 16th century. It was a massive office, over 1,000 square feet, and it valued 2 stories, lined with bookshelves stuffed with books, and the room had a rolling ladder for the tall shelves and a spiral suitcase to an upper balcony. She's a prize, Tony said to Sergio before motioning Sergio into a plush leather couch by the brick fireplace. Sergio said. Tony lowered himself into his recliner. But you're not here to talk about her. What's on your mind, son? I need a loan, Sergio said. He decided to be direct. I thought you won all that money. I spent nearly all of it. Tony's bushy white eyebrows raised. Papa, you always said you have to spend money to make money, and that's what I'm doing. I have to create a mind-blowing renovation, something so good that it's going to be featured in architectural and design magazines and even the newspaper. I need to create buzz. That's what will get me clients. If you could loan me just a couple $100,000, I can create what I want, and then my business will be off and running. I'll pay you back really fast. Tony ran a hand through his curly white hair. He smoothed his mustache and tapped the side of his long nose, the nose he'd unfortunately handed down to Sergio. Okay, Tony said. I'll loan you the money, but it's a short-term loan. If you can't pay it back in 6 months, you'll pay it back in labor. Sergio, who had been starting to smile, frowned. What do you mean? You'll have to come drive a truck for me. Sergio stared at his father, then shrugged. Why not agree to it? He'd be able to pay back the loan before that would happen. Still, the exchange concerned him. Over dinner, his concerns turned into a full-blown annoyance. They had dinner al fresco, sitting at the iron and glass table on the stone patio in the back garden. It would have been a nice meal if Claire hadn't kept sniping at him. Do you want to try some of my roasted Brussels sprouts? She asked him at one point. They're really good. Sergio's mother found the question amusing. Sergio doesn't like Brussels sprouts, Claire, dear. He's like his father. They just don't appreciate good vegetables. Tony ignored the comment. Sergio couldn't. It bothered him. Where did Claire get off telling him what he should like? She's just being nice. Oh my god, dude. So close to the end. Just a little bit longer. Just need my voice to hold out just a little bit longer for me. Okay. In the car on the way home, Sergio did what he needed to do. Claire was chattering about how lovely his parents' home was. Have you ever thought about designing a big house like that? She asked. Sergio didn't bother to answer the question. He said, I don't want to date you anymore. Claire looked at him. What did you say? You heard me. I don't want to date anymore. All you do is find fault with me. I don't like it. Find fault? How do I find fault? The shirts, the CDs. What? Giving you gifts is finding fault? You told me I should wear lifts. You said you felt short. I was just trying to be helpful. You don't like my taste in vegetables. I was just telling you mine tasted good. I don't know why you go out with me if there's so much wrong with me, Sergio complained. Claire crossed her arms and glared at him. You're being ridiculous. Yeah, see? Now you think I'm ridiculous. Claire said, you lost your mind. Writing in the console, as always these days, Lucky Boy giggled. Claire picked up Lucky Boy and shook the toy in Sergio's direction. And you play with dolls. Sergio grabbed for Lucky Boy. Put him down. He turned to look at Claire, and the truck swerved. Claire held Lucky Boy away from Sergio. You've started treating it like a guru. And I was going along with it, but really, Sergio, it's a tchotchke, a doll, a little statue. It's not your personal guide through life. If you think it is, you're a weirdo. Claire pressed the button to lower her window. You need to get rid of this thing. She raised her arm to toss Lucky Boy out of the truck. Sergio lunged for Lucky Boy, and as he did, he wrenched the wheel. They were heading into a curve, and the lifted truck couldn't handle the severe turn. It tipped right over, and left the road, heading down the rocky embankment. Suddenly, they were upside down, then right side up, then upside down. Every flip of the vehicle was accompanied by the screeching crunch of metal against rock. Every jolt threw them around within the confines of their seatbelts, which thankfully jerked against their bodies. Thankfully, Sergio was able to grab Lucky Boy away from Claire as the truck started going over, so the toy wasn't damaged. The truck landed right side up, but its roof was smashed down toward their heads. Claire started screaming as the second the truck stopped moving. So Sergio worked as fast as he could to undo his seatbelt and himself. He wanted to get out of the compressed space filled with Claire's hysterical shrieking. He managed to kick his crumpled door open and stumble out. Just as he turned to help Claire, another truck stopped. Are you okay? A middle-aged man called out. Sergio took stock. He got jostled about for sure. It felt like he'd pulled a couple muscles, and he knew he'd have bruises, but nothing was broken. He looked at Claire. She didn't seem to have anything broken either. He saw no blood. It looked like she was more angry than injured. We're okay, he called out. Speak for yourself, Claire snapped. You're going to pay for this. I'll go get help, the middle-aged man shouted. Thanks, Sergio called out. I don't know if I ever said that. The truck was a mess. After it was towed, Sergio found out that would need thousands of dollars in bodywork, and it would be in the shop for a couple of weeks. Suddenly, Sergio was without a vehicle. Again. He was also without a girlfriend, and soon he was facing a lawsuit. Claire was suing him for negligence resulting in her injuries. Because Sergio couldn't get suppliers to choose finishes for the renovations, work started slowing down again. On top of that, unbeknownst to Sergio, his contractor had a thing for Claire, and he quit after the accident. I can't, in good conscience, work for a man who hurts women. Oh my god, it wasn't his fault. Oh, okay, it kind of was, but oh my gosh, this... We'll just see. My throat. Oh, I have a text. Just gonna take a quick reminder of how long. 140. We're on page 132. We can finish this. I can do this. I can't in good conscience work for a man who hurts women, the contractor said. That set Sergio's project back a full month, but he wasn't worried. It would all come together. Besides, it wasn't important. He had something far more exciting to think about. The day after Sergio broke up with Claire, he had called his mother to ask if she could get him Sophia's phone number. Before he could ask, though, his mother had told him that he'd received yet another invitation to his high school reunion. How lucky was that? It would be even better than calling her. He'd meet up with Sophia at the reunion and wow her and the rest of the class. Hey, Mama, you know Sophia Manchester's mama, right? Sophia, that lovely girl from my class. Yes, we're good friends. Could you find out if she's going to the reunion? His mother let out a little squeal. Oh, my Sergio is so clever. Yes, I can do that. That Claire was a nice girl, but Sophia is so much better for you. I agree, Mama. Content that the perfect girl was once more in his sights, Sergio returned his attention to his renovations until he heard from his mother. It didn't take long for her to get back to him. When she called him, she was bubbling with enthusiasm. She shouted in his ear, Sergio, she's definitely coming. Sophia will be at the reunion. Sergio hung up the phone, grinning from ear to ear. Not only was he getting the time he needed to catch up on the renovation, but he was also going to get the girl of his dreams. Be careful what you wish for. The next 2.5 weeks passed quickly. Sergio didn't make as much progress on the renovations as he wanted, but he wasn't concerned. He finally had his truck back, so things were going to go faster now. You have all the time you need, Lucky Boy told him. He was, however, running out of time to get ready for his reunion. What should I do to get ready for the reunion? Sergio asked Lucky Boy after he polished off a burger one evening. I have the right clothes, but I think I should do more. I want to knock Sophia's socks off. I think I should go above and beyond. What do you think? Oh, no. Sergio was still living pretty much on his bed. The rest of his furniture was stacked up and covered with plastic to keep it free of paint, splatters, and dust created by the renovations. He leaned back on his pillow and looked at his little buddy, who now had his own pillow next to Sergio's on the bed. Be the best to get the best, Lucky Boy said. Well, Sergio was the best architect, and he was going to have the best business. Debatable. What about my looks? Sergio said. I know I'm smart, but smart never counted for much in high school. When I go to the reunion, everyone's going to look at me and just see a 10-year-older version of who I was then. I want to go back looking different. And I have to admit, I have some flaws in my appearance. My ears, for instance. They're too big. What should I do about my ears? You don't need them, Lucky Boy said. What does that mean? I don't need my ears? Sergio was confused. You're better off without them. Do you really think so? Really? Sergio asked. Get rid of what you don't need. Oh, shit. Here we go. He thought about going to the reunion. Without his big dopey ears sticking out. That would be so great. But his ears weren't the only issue. I still won't look the way I want to. Even without my big ears, I'd still really like to look perfect for the reunion. You deserve perfection, Lucky Boy said. Exactly, you're right. I do. See, Sergio leaned over the box he used as a nightstand. He grabbed a pad of paper and a pen. Okay, Lucky Boy, you need to help me here. Let's figure out what I can do to be the best me for the reunion. Let's make a list so I know exactly what I need to do. Make a plan for perfection. Sergio grinned. That's just what I'm going to do. He tapped the paper. Okay, well, besides my ears, he said, I hate my hair. He scribbled on the paper. Hair is overrated, Lucky Boy said. Lucky Boy was right. Hair was a lot of work. Dale had a shaved head, and women found him attractive. Sergio made a note, but then frowned. He remembered Dale talking about how much work it is to maintain a perfectly shaved head. More work than keeping hair nice. Shaving wasn't going to do it. His hair would grow back if he didn't go deep. He scratched out his previous note and wrote a new one. Ooh. He thought for a few seconds. My eyes are too small. I look like a bird. I have beady eyes. What can I do about my eyes? Eyelids cover eyes. Good point, Sergio said. He made another note. My nose is too long. Cut to fit. That's the rule, Lucky Boy said. Sergio nodded. Of course. When what was too long, you trimmed off the end, he wrote on the pad. He's applying the principles of, building and, architecture to being a person. What the heck? I'm sorry. My lips are too thick, Sergio said. They look like a girl's lips. Wood carvers are the artists, Lucky Boy said. Another good point, Sergio said. Why hadn't he thought of that? He was a master at reshaping wood. He was sure he could reshape anything. He scribbled another note. They said, I want to be taller. Remove and reuse, Lucky Boy said. Sergio smiled. Right! He often took scrap material from one part of a project and repurposed it for another part. He made a note. I'm sorry. This hurt. My skin is crawling. I don't like this. Then he wondered, what should I do about my belly? Leaner is meaner, Lucky Boy said. Trim the fat. Sergio nodded and wrote on his list. He smiled warmly at Lucky Boy. You're a great help. I'm so glad I found you. Lucky Boy giggled. Okay. Sergio sat and wrote for a bit longer than he stood. Okay, it's time to get to work. Sergio crossed to his stack of boxes and moved them until he found the one he wanted. Tearing off the tape, he reached in and pulled out his kitchen knife set. He put it on the bed. Setting the first box aside, he examined the surrounding boxes until he found the next one he wanted. He ripped the tape from that box and pulled out a pair of scissors, needles, and thread, a measuring tape, and some twine. He laid all these items out on the bed. He stepped into the makeshift bathroom and got his razor. He added that to what he'd already gathered. He left his little carved-out living space and walked out into the unfinished great room. I should have the rest of what I need out here. He looked around. He spotted a box cutter on what was going to become the kitchen island, and he picked it up. Then he looked around again. His gaze landed on his drill. That would come in handy. Now he was going to Now, where had he put his wood carving knives? He had a whole set of them. They were extra sharp for exact contouring. Oh, God. Ah, there they were. He found them tucked behind his router. Pondering for a moment, he picked it up too, and he grabbed the set of bits that went with it. Oh no. He surveyed the space again. He needed one more thing. He saw what he was looking for on the far side of the room. He crossed over, picked up a handsaw, and returned to his living area. He added his new tools to the collection on the bed. He looked at Lucky Boy. What do you think? Do I have everything? The right tools for the right jobs. Oh, God. Sergio felt a rush of excitement. This was going to be awesome. He was finally going to fix himself up so he'd be as eye-catching as he was successful. Sergio did a moonwalk along the foot of the bed. He spun in a circle and looked at his assembled tools. Where to begin? This part, my skin is crawling. Like, I have goosebumps. Like, this is not okay. Do not try this at home. Do not try this crap at home. This is not something you do, okay? Do not take a page from Sergio's book. Do not be stupid. Okay. Okay, let's finish this. Sergio's class reunion was being held in the grand ballroom of the oldest hotel in town. He was excited about that because the ballroom was impressive. With gilded ornate ceilings and carved panel walls that filled with crystal chandeliers and fine artwork, the room was exactly the kind of room that would make a great backdrop for Sergio's new and impressive look. He was going to drop some jaws this evening. That was for sure. He decided to arrive late so he had the biggest audience possible for his grand entrance. Thankful to have his big truck to help him get him to the festivities, Sergio drove up to the hotel in gleeful anticipation. This was going to be so much fun. Inside the hotel, most of Sergio's classmates were already in full party mode. Squealed greetings, warm hugs, and fond laughter joined in with 80s rock hits played by a band. Even though the room was already fancy, the reunion planners had topped off the room with streamers and a big "Welcome, class of 85." Okay, so class of 85, he would have been like 18 when he graduated. It's about... Okay, so they're in 1995. Okay, then. Sorry. 95. 1995. Game theory. I'm sorry. Game theorist. And a big welcome class of 85 banner that hung high on the wall. Reunion attendees talked and joked and danced under a floating cloud of helium balloons. When the ballroom doors opened to let in the latest arrival, all eyes turned to see who was coming in now. In unison, all those eyes widened in horror. The music stopped playing with the screech of a discordant guitar chord and the reverberating clash of a cymbal. Talking ceased entirely. The entire room went completely silent. Then a woman screamed, and another, and another. One woman fainted. Someone threw up. Several people covered their mouths. Several more turned away. Some started running toward the back of the room. Not sure what had caused the upset, Sergio looked behind him to see if something terrible was coming. He saw nothing. A man and a woman were at the far end of the hall, but they were headed the other way. A waiter was coming out of another ballroom, but he too was going in another direction. No one was behind Sergio. As Sergio started to turn back toward his classmates, his gaze landed on the floor. He frowned. The floor was disgusting. What had happened? What had happened in this hallway? Sergio hadn't noticed the floor when he walked in, probably because he was so eager to make his captivating appearance, but now he stared at it. The gold carpet behind him was stained with a thick trail of blood. No, not just blood. White bits of flesh nestled in the blood. He also saw what looked like bone bits, clumps of hair, and blobs of what appeared to be pink, spongy tissue dropped at intervals along the center of the hallway. The blobs gleamed in the glow from the overhead chandeliers and seemed to wiggle as he looked at them. It was nauseating. Sergio was appalled. He thought this was supposed to be a classy hotel. Someone should do something about the mess. But if he went to get a hotel employee now, he'd mess up his timing. His classmates were waiting for him. Sergio looked back down the hall to where he'd left Lucky Boy sitting on the chair so he could watch Sergio's triumph. Lucky Boy would agree that Sergio deserved to have the best cleaners take care of this mess. Lucky Boy giggled. Sergio looked down at his feet and noticed even more gruesome waste staining the carpet next to his brand new shoes. Oh, for heaven's sake. Some of the gore had even gotten on the black leather. He leaned over, wiped off what appeared to be some rubbery gristle. He leaned over and wiped over what appeared to be some rubbery gristle. He shook his head. He would deal with the hotel's janitorial shortcomings later. He turned to his fellow classmates. Now, he said to himself, where is Sophia? Woo! If you don't know what happened, then, oh my god. Okay. So, basic rundown of what Sergio just did. He took Lucky Boy fairly literally, and he also used the wrong tools for this. What he did was cut off his ears, cut off his nose, cut off his eyelids, he reshaped his lips, he cut off his belly, and he reused that skin and flesh to make himself taller. I'm surprised he's not dead. He also scalped himself, like he took off his scalp so that he wouldn't have to deal with hair or balding or... It's disgusting. Don't do this at home. This is not safe. If you're going to have this kind of work done, have it done by a professional. It's going to cost more, but it's not a lot, but it's safer because those people are professionals. They know what they're doing. Don't be like Sergio. Okay. And I'm sorry, but my voice is giving out too much. My throat is basically dead after 2 hours. So I'll read what we found maybe later today, maybe during the next stream, but I think that's going to be it for today. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys during the next stream or the next short. Bye!